Hello and welcome. Sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you. To our final Twilight talk for the year. I'm Prue Bentley, a board member here at the Ballarat Mechanics Institute. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're sharing ideas and friendship on the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Well, hasn't it been a doozy of a year? But we've made it through, we've come to the end. Hooray, woo! The Twilight talks, of course, are a really important part of the BMI, and it's how we regularly connect with our members and also the community. And before we start the talk, I do want to give a shout out to everyone who has helped to get these talks back on the rails in the last few months. Special thanks to Sam McColl, who's just sitting to my right, whose technical capabilities have meant we could live stream our talks and get more people engaged for more of the time while we were in lockdown. And also Phil Roberts, who curates the talks and finds all the fascinating people that we hear about and learn from right throughout the year. Also, I'd like to thank the audience in person and also those watching the live stream tonight for supporting us right throughout this year, and we hope to come back with a bigger and better season next year, COVID restrictions notwithstanding, of course. Now, there will be a little bit of time at the end of this talk for questions, so if you think of anything, if you're in our audience tonight, just you can put up your hand at the end. If you're watching the live stream, you can put those questions in the chat and we can put those to our guests. So tonight we have a very special seasonal talk with two speakers who have a first-hand insight into some of the more unsavoury realities of the Christmas experience in Ballarat. So while most of us are stressing about which tree to buy, or which socks Uncle Harry would prefer, or that your sister is bringing her vegan boyfriend to Christmas lunch, some people have far greater challenges at this time of year. Homelessness, mental illness, family violence, they can all be experienced much more sharply during the festive season. And I don't need to tell you why. There can be just as much stress as joy in Christmas. And for more than 2 decades, the Uniting Breezeway Meals program has been serving up hot meals to the needy, rain, hail or shine, and making sure that everyone has a chance to eat with friends in a safe place for Christmas. And if that isn't in the true spirit of Christmas, I don't know what is. So they do it with a minimum of fuss or funds, relying on donations and a band of committed volunteers to keep the service running. Over the years, they have served over 250,000 meals, which is, I was doing the calculations, it's a little bit like feeding everybody at a non-COVID AFL Grand Final, breakfast, lunch and dinner. It's a lot of meals, and I think it's actually probably more than that since I read it on your website, so we'll probably find out a bit more about that soon. I'm in absolute awe of the work of the Breezeway program, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about how they undertake this vital work. So please welcome Warwick Davison and Jen Wright from Uniting Ballarat's Breezeway program.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having us and thanks for inviting us along, and I too, as part of Uniting's commitment to traditional owners of land, would like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Thanks. I thought tonight we'd just start by talking about my field, or our field, which we work in, which is housing and homelessness sector. So it's a big field, but it definitely impacts and contributes to the services that we provide and why we provide what we do at Uniting here in Ballarat. So I've been at Uniting now for 16 years, and in that time I've worked in a variety of roles within that sector and that area, and I've definitely seen an increase in a demand and a definite change towards what's happened in our housing and homelessness market and area and the effects that that's had on people. So I think for people, to recognise people or a person as being homeless, it doesn't necessarily mean being out and sleeping rough and rooflessness. In fact, rough sleepers only make up 7% of our homeless in Australia. So that's people sleeping out what most people traditionally think of when you say a homeless person, they think of the person sleeping on a park bench or under a bridge, but that's a very small amount of the actual population. So the balance is made up of what we tend to call the hidden homeless, or the ones that are staying in temporary options, crisis accom, staying with family and friends, living on their floors, couch surfing, moving around, caravan parks, etc. So that is the bulk of the homeless population. The 2016 census, which is our best one we can go by, was that there was 116,000 people that were homeless in Australia at that time. That also didn't take into account that there was another 97,000 people in what would be tenuous accommodations that may have been in caravan parks, rooming houses, etc. So I don't know also if you may remember, there's been a number of attempts to address this, and there was the white paper announced, I think 2008, the Road Home, and the aim was to reduce homelessness by 2020 and cut it in half. They obviously haven't succeeded in that, unfortunately, and that's gone out the window. But back then there was 105,000 people deemed as being homeless. One of the ways that they sought about reducing and halving the rate of homelessness was by changing the way we count that. So people that were in rooming houses and that were no longer a part of that. So it was one way of reducing your homeless population by just no longer taking those people in. So there is no real national housing strategy and a combined one across the country. It's been left to states to work on that and to address that. So it's been really interesting over my time there that there hasn't been a huge amount of money put into it, and I can say up until this year, with the recent Victorian government announcement of the $5.3 billion to come into that social housing and investment, that's been welcomed with open arms by us, and something that's been called for a really long time. I think there is no cure for homelessness apart from homes. So I think people often feel like, why can't people just go out and get a place to rent, or why can't they go out and buy a place? But our dynamic in Australia has changed, and as soon as we started seeing houses from the start of the first home buyers grant and investment into property, and we've seen property prices go through the roof, those people that would have once had a chance to get a foot on the door in low-end incomes haven't been able to purchase their own properties, haven't been able to get in, and then people that have invested into properties are seeking to get the best return they can, which is what's expected. So property rental prices have gone up, and if you're on low-end income or a Centrelink income, it's put those properties almost out of reach. So to be considered as being in housing stress, you need to be paying more than 30% of what your income is to maintain your accommodation. Majority of people we're seeing are paying well over 50% of that, and they are struggling to get by day to day. So I guess, I don't want people to have a picture of people that are falling into the homelessness sector as being people that have brought it on themselves, or that there's they must have contributed in some way. We see people day to day that are working, or maybe there's just been such a small change. One person in the partnership have lost an income or a wage, and it's put so much financial burden on them that they're already close to the line, and this is the point where they may tip out. So the Victorian census, we had 25,000 people back listed as being homeless back then, and there's been an increase of 43% from 2006 to 2016 in Victoria. So it's been growing incrementally over that time, and I think that's why finally we've got a government that is put their money where their mouth is, and they're actually putting some money into it. So it's been welcomed across the board from all the community sector, definitely. So out of that money, they're aiming to put 12,000 new homes into the system, which is terrific. That 9,300 of those will go into social housing, which is predominantly the area that we tend to work in through Uniting. That I guess there is another component to this. It's possibly to build us and boost the economy. So over that period of time, by doing that, they're hoping to generate at least 18,000 jobs. So it will be not only a benefit to those that are experiencing homelessness, but hopefully to be able to start steering us out of the economic downturn that we have had due to COVID. So the department have created a new arm of themselves specifically to focus on that and split how they traditionally operated it. So it's Homes Victoria now is in there, and they will have their own board and everything that they report to. So there's a real commitment, I think, now to the future and working towards positive solutions. So there was just another report as well released 2 days ago from Equity Economics, the Everybody's Home report, and that's they're calling on a massive investment over the next I think 3 years, but to actually end homelessness, not just put a band-aid on it, but to start working towards that. So their prediction as well is that Ballarat, post-COVID, as we come out of this, will actually experience probably a 20% increase in people experiencing homelessness. So that we're not talking too far away, we're talking early next year. So if that prediction comes true, we're going to be in a little bit of strife here, because we just don't have the housing stock here on the ground now, and we don't have the private rental market that can support it. So I did a look the other week and jumped on trusty Google and some of the property websites, and put all the suburbs around Ballarat in and just looked for, say, 1-bedroom properties, because people that are on a new start allowance, that's really all they're going to be able to afford. So when I did that, I came up with 5 houses or 5 1-bedroom units in Ballarat, and only one of those was deemed as affordable on a new start allowance. So I think that was $175 a week. Now, if you're one of however many people that are searching for accommodation in town, and maybe you're a working professional, and it depends on the agents and it depends on the owners, but they may choose that person, a working professional, over someone on a Centrelink income to go in there, because they might see that they're going to be get a better return and their income's going to be guaranteed for whatever reason. Not that there should be that discrimination, I suppose. But that's kind of the state of where we are now. So Ballarat just is struggling. At one point we had a less than 1% vacancy rate here. It has slowly come up, and we are seeing some people get a foot in the door, which is brilliant, because we were seeing people that have never ever been in a situation where they've had to walk into an agency like ours, and their tenancy was coming to an end. The owner wanted to renovate or whatever it was, and they were applying for 50 or 60 houses and had good rental references, no problems at all, but just because of the competitiveness of the market, could not get a foot in the door. So then they were falling into the homelessness system where they didn't need to be. So that sort of stuff is still going on now, day to day. We are still, I'll talk about some of our programs in a second, but I guess we have been lucky enough to receive some funds through development and through some of the grants and things, especially that came out of the rough sleeping action plan. So everyone would remember, there was a lot of stuff on the media about when there was all the rough sleepers down, particularly in CBD of Melbourne, and there was a very visible face. When people are stepping over homeless people on the street, I guess that brings a lot of attention to it, then the Melbourne City Council and Victorian Government said we're going to end, work on trying to get everybody housed, and then there was a real investment into working on a plan to actually end homelessness for those people that are rough sleeping. And I think, if you look at what can be done out of that, the results are amazing. So we were lucky enough to have a pilot up here in Ballarat, and we were then able to secure 3-year funding for a program for our Street to Home team. So they've been able to house just over 70 long-term rough sleepers that have been around town. And a lot of people go, we don't have homeless people in Ballarat. Well, yes we do. They're just very well, they don't want to be seen either, and they don't want to have to engage with people, but they might not be, literally sleeping in the main street. They might be just on the outskirts of town, in some of the grandstands, or sleeping in the bush as well. So we go out, actively engage with those people and work around bringing to them the supports rather than them having to come to us. And the results from that have been brilliant. So I think the future lies in programs like that actively engage people, and then rather than saying, so that team, I've gone off track a little bit, but that team employs mental health workers, drug and alcohol workers, case managers, and the people that actually go out and find people in the bush. And they have been able to provide the wraparound service. So rather than saying, yep, okay, well now you'll have to go to there to see a mental health worker, or there, which puts up a barrier straight away. Once they've built the rapport, we can start engaging them, and that's why we're having such good results. So I think the future for housing and housing support probably looks like that, in tailoring support to take out to the people there. I think for us, we recognise that for anyone to walk in our doors, it's a huge task. It's a point in time when people are at their most vulnerable quite often, and that's the point when you realise that your resources or your family connections or friends are not able to help you anymore or sustain you, or you feel embarrassed about going to them. So I think for us, the key component is about being respectful for anyone who walks in our doors, and making that time. We may not be able to provide something for them on the day, but they should still be able to go away with information, or feel that they've been heard and they know where to go next if we can work out a bit of a plan forward. So I think for us, we really are all about engaging with someone and speaking to people early. So our programs cover a very broad spectrum, from mental health to drug and alcohol, to our emergency relief, food relief, to Breezeway, which Jen is going to talk about soon, to our homelessness entry point. So Ballarat operates as, for Central Highlands region, we are one of 3 for Central Highlands, but we're the biggest entry point here. We act essentially as a funnel for anyone experiencing homelessness, or about to experience homelessness, or some form of housing stress. So we see people and refer them on in order of priority out to the appropriate service for them, because how that all came about was people were saying, we hate telling a story over and over again. We hate going to this service and tell our story, pour our heart out, and they go, that's terrible, but we're not the service for you. You need to go now across to there. So how it operates now is the person only has to tell their story once. We then prioritise the person in order of need and refer them on to the service that best suits them and can provide what they need. We at Uniting are pretty much overrun at the minute. There's well over 170 appointments just the other week. It's pretty consistent. We are juggling nearly 60 households in motels. We've got 160 people on our priority lists waiting to come into our transitional housing programs. So those transitional housing programs are spread across youth, family violence, family independent living for people over 55. We've got a broad range, but it's quite a big breadth, but we still don't have enough options there for people. So that's why we've had to resort to other crisis options. We also were lucky out of that, I was talking before about that rough sleeping action plan. We have another program that operates out of Uniting, that's the private rental assistance program, and that's brilliant in that what it aims to do is stop people tipping into the market, into the homelessness sector. So our whole I guess, aim is to stop catching people at the bottom of the cliff, that stop them from falling over. That program is aimed to work really closely with real estate agents, and it has a good amount of brokerage that comes with it. So that, say, if there are people that are, experiencing a loss of a wage, and maybe there's 4 weeks or a month or 2 months or whatever in between jobs, or something's happened, we might be able to negotiate with real estate agents and also possibly broker a bit of a deal with them just to keep that person in their accommodation. And more often than not, we assist people once and we never see them again. It's just been a small stumbling block that has caused them to fall into some sort of distress. And that's the whole aim of that program, to stop people falling in. Otherwise they would have possibly gone to VCAT, been evicted, listed on a poor tenant database, ticker, etc., and then not being able to secure their own rental again. So that's the whole aim of that, and it's been brilliant since it commenced. I've kind of spoken a little bit about some of the programs we're providing. I've got a fly hanging around me. But Uniting has really made a big commitment to, and this is Uniting VicTas. So several years ago, all the Uniting cares, which we were formerly known as, across Victoria and Tasmania merged, so 25 services merged together to become Uniting. And our whole aim is to, become a stronger voice in that market, but also make a commitment. So Uniting's, put $20 million towards developing our social housing arm, because we see that as the key and the base to ending homelessness. As I said before, the only solution to homelessness is homes. It goes back, to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I don't know if people may be familiar with that, but he was a famous psychiatrist, basically just said that without the basics of life, it's a pyramid. The base level is food, water, shelter. So without that, you can't, the basics getting by day to day, you can't start to address the other things that have happened in your life. So without knowing where you're going to sleep, where you're going to get your food from, you can't then start to go, I've had past traumas and I need to link in with someone to address that, or I want to work on repairing my relationships with family, or I want to work on my drug and alcohol issues. But you can't do that if you've got no stable base. So some of the really amazing things have been development of the housing first models that have come out of that rough sleeping action plan as well. So taking people that have been long-term rough sleepers, giving them a stable base, and we've been able to move people on after several years, because they've finally had a chance just to sit still, take a breath, and work on where they need to be, engage with the services that they've needed to engage with, and with support then move on. So it's been fantastic. I was talking about I'll go around in circles. I feel a bit like Billy Connolly, but not as funny. We've got all these other arms of our service that we provide, and Breezeway has been one of our long-standing community programs, which Jen's going to talk about, and I don't know how much longer you want me to talk for, but Jen can talk about that, and then I guess we open up the floor to people if anyone has any questions. But thank you.
Come on. Thank you. Breezeway has been a vital part of Ballarat, and Ballarat is a vital part of Breezeway.
We've been operating now for 24 years, which, when you think about it, is the lifetime of a lot of the people that we come to see, or come to see us. Breezeway operates with a very small staff. We're unfunded, completely unfunded. We operate under the auspices of Uniting, which means Uniting covers our staff costs, they provide us with the premises, they support us when we're short. But primarily, Breezeway is Ballarat, and it's Ballarat giving back to the community and helping people that are struggling. It's interesting, I've only been with Breezeway for 12 months, and it's been a fairly tumultuous 12 months, I might add, but anyway. I found it very interesting. We all have perceptions of what homelessness is, or who Breezeway helps. And to be perfectly honest, there but for the grace of God go any one of us. It's very interesting to stand there and to meet the people that come through the door. And it's very interesting to realise that it's one of those situations where respect is probably the greatest thing you can give over and above the food. Anybody that walks into Breezeway gets a meal. If you're hungry, we will feed you. It's as simple as that. We don't ask, we don't judge. We simply provide a meal. This year has been really challenging, not for us, but for many of our clients. The number of people coming through the door have doubled. And they're people that very often have never seen us before. Often they're people who we haven't seen for quite some time. They've been in a settled situation, and with COVID there's just been challenges. It's also a situation Breezeway actually offers a lot more than just food. It's community, it's contact, it's friendship. And these are the things that many of our people come for. They may cook a meal at home. Many of them can't, so they will come not because they can't afford a meal, but they can't cook for themselves. Many don't have cooking facilities suitable to provide themselves with a hot meal. Some are homeless, some are living in our accommodation areas, but predominantly, as Warwick said, it's not just rough sleepers that come through the door, it's people like you and I who have just had a bad situation occur. And I think that's very important for us to understand and realise. At this time of year, with COVID, or this year with COVID, we actually had to step back from that social contact, and that's actually made a big impression on our people. At this time of year in particular, it's really interesting to see the way people are reacting. Everybody is very grateful that Breezeway is still there and still providing meals. The number of times we're thanked, particularly during COVID and when we were in full lockdown, the number of times people just said, please, thank you for still being here, was really quite surprising. But coming into Christmas, this year for the first time in 24 years, we can't provide a seated Christmas dinner. So the 80 people that are coming, or that we will be helping on Christmas Day, would normally sit together as a family. They have common experiences. They feel comfortable with each other. But this year, unfortunately, we have to do it as a takeaway. We are actually providing a lovely Christmas, or a packaged hamper as their Christmas lunch, with all the trimmings and the bonbons and the napkins and everything else. But one of our long-term clients said to me the other day, "Oh, but I'm going to miss being here. I've been here for Christmas Day for the last years." And our response was, well, you know who you normally sit with on Christmas Day. Get them all together. We'll give you your lunch, take it to the park and have it together there. So we're hoping to encourage many of our people to still spend time with the people that are important to them and the people that understand them. It's a hard time, I think, for our volunteers as well. When COVID first hit, our volunteer base dropped by 85%, and our clientele increased. So it was really quite a struggle for a while. We were pulling staff out of other offices. We were grabbing people from anywhere we could find them just to get the meals out. But we did it. And we've also had, since then, an increase in volunteers, new volunteers coming through. So it's actually changed the demographic of our volunteers quite considerably, because previously most of our volunteers were retired. Many of them were over 70, which is why they couldn't come to help us. And now we have a range of ages from 20 through to our 70s that are starting to come back, which is lovely. So it's made a big difference to the demographic of our volunteers. It's given us a different skill base, and it's made life very interesting for us. So it's one of those situations, again, COVID's been a bit of a double-edged sword for Breezeway. We've had a lot of great support. We've had a lot of challenges, but at the end of the day, we're there. And our clientele appreciate us. They simply know that Breezeway is a very special place. We're very fortunate with donations locally. We get a lot of our funding. As I said earlier, we're not government funded. It's only with the grace of uniting that Breezeway can exist, but also with the support of local people. We have many people that donate food. We've been able to develop relationships with supermarkets who give us the option to take food that they would normally take off their shelves. Certainly it's not beyond use, but it needs to be used quickly. And as a result of that, as a result of the way we source our food, our cooks have to be very inventive sometimes, because where you and I would go to the supermarket and say, I'm having bolognese for dinner tonight, I'll buy my mince and I'll buy my tomatoes and I'll buy my pasta. Our cooks have to deal with, here's a box of food, what are you going to do with it? And sometimes you are challenged. But it's also interesting to see how creative we can be, and it's very interesting to see how much waste there is in the society. The amount of food that is wasted in our society is just beyond explanation. As an example, this year I've spent $120 on fruit and vegetables, and we feed 450 people a week a hot meal, plus sandwiches, fruit and drinks. The rest of the fruit and vegetables we have been able to source locally or through Food Bank. Food Bank is very helpful. They give us the staples, but there is so much fruit and vegetable comes through our doors. Warwick will attest, there are some days where people come through and say, what are you doing, Jen? Can you please move these crates and crates of fruit? But it's amazing when you stop and look at it. Being able to source that is vital to a program like Breezeway. But so are our cash donations. They're the things that let us fill the gaps. So on the whole, Breezeway this year, Christmas will be very different. It will be presented with as much love and concern and compassion as it always has been. And hopefully, come the end of January, we'll be opening our new Breezeway, which is a much larger area and will allow us to start seating people again and giving that social interaction back to our clients and guests. So, I don't think there's much more I can say.
Lightning, because, there we go. I'll say that again. Thank you very much for that, Warwick and Jen. Come back out here, because I do have a couple of questions, if others have questions too. Because just firstly about the Breezeway, you talk about it's donations based, and you source food from Food Bank and you get it from supermarkets and all of that sort of thing. You don't have government funding. Would you want government? If government came to you and said, look, we're willing to give you $100,000 a year, would that change things for you? Would it make it easier? Would it not matter? What would that be?
Make it easier. Sorry. Yeah. It would probably make it easier, but I think it would take the heart out of Breezeway to a large degree.
Yeah.
Breezeway is Ballarat. It purely and simply is. And I doubt that there'd be anybody that's lived in Ballarat more than 15 years that would not know what Breezeway was. Yeah, so, I mean, $100,000 would simply only pay for the food that we're getting for nothing.
That's really interesting, because often we talk about these things and we lament that government isn't funding these incredible projects that, you know, that are only there based on the generosity of the people around us.
If we could get funding for staff, that would be a different story.
Yeah.
But generally, government funding for projects such as Breezeway does not cover the staff costs. So if we were able to get funding for staff, it would allow us to develop our program, offer not better, but different aspects, and broaden what we can do. But staffing costs is where we do really miss out. And as I said, but for the grace of uniting, we wouldn't be there.
And just on that too, if I was to walk through the doors on a typical day, or even on Christmas Day, for example, who would I see? What would I be faced with?
You would be faced with one of our cooks, possibly me, depending on how busy they are. If they've actually... We are working very much towards making sure that everything is ready to go Christmas Eve. If we're not, I'll be there. And you'll see probably 5 volunteers this year who will be there just helping package and hand food out because it's a different program. In the past, there would probably have been 8 to 10 volunteers who are there helping serve, helping clean up, washing dishes, plating food, and just being part of the general Breezeway family.
And the clientele, I mean, you talked a little bit about there, but for the grace of God go I, and we all have preconceived notions of who these people are in our heads.
Okay. We will have a gentleman who might sleep under a tree, sitting next to the lady in the striped shirt at the back, who, unfortunately, has just split up with her husband. She's in her 60s. She's still trying to sort out the house. She's living in her BMW. And has no income, no house. There's nothing to rent in Ballarat. She can't afford a motel. And she's lonely. So she's come to us to spend Christmas Day.
What about families? Do you see many families?
We have seen more families coming in over COVID. Again, because there's been reductions in income, there's been additional stresses on them. We have one family that comes in and the lady tells her kids, "Oh, we're going for takeaway today," and they come and get takeaway.
Yeah.
You know, but it's partly a treat for them, but more importantly, it's needed.
Yeah.
And I know that we have 3 families with young children who will be sourcing their Christmas lunch from us this year.
It must be a rewarding job.
It's challenging, it's rewarding, it's just what you do. It simply is, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's it. It's rewarding. Too far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rewarding. Yeah, I'd say that. And I don't work out there every day, like I walk through, but I think the interactions and community that goes on out there is what makes people come back and why volunteers come back, and it keeps people working in that area as well. So, it's not just about serving up a plate of food. It's like, g'day, whoever, how you going? Oh, yep, how you been travelling? Oh, have you seen your worker? Because, often these guys will flag things that are going on for people if need be, and if they know they're linked in with us.
Or even when they're not. Often we're the soft entry point.
Yeah.
They will come to us for a meal and we'll start having a chat to them and we'll start to find out that there's actually bigger issues here. Yeah, and we will introduce them to the rest of United.
Go and
to
grab
the
a
other
worker
services.
from the right department, come in, have a chat, and it's, a non-threatening, this is what
when
we're
they
doing.
realise it's not
Very
so threatening and
non-confrontational.
everybody's, there's no judgment, they can kind of...
That's it, and that's what I was saying. It's really hard for people to walk in our door often. So, if you're coming in for a meal and not saying, that you've got a substance use problem or whatever it may be, or you're homeless or whatever else, and you're just coming to get a meal, but we can then link in and provide support if a person wants it.
I'm going to ask a really controversial question of you, Warwick, because you were talking about the money for the social housing that's just come through from the state government, which 12,000 new houses, which is amazing. We're going to get a huge amount of money. I think it's $80,000. Sorry, what was it? 80?
I think there was going to be, because it's 80 million.
80 million, sorry, 80,000 is not enough,
no,
really,
that's
is
not
it?
enough.
For one house. 80 million for Ballarat, even.
Brilliant.
Just for Ballarat to build some social housing. My question is a bit controversial because obviously, you know, one of the big questions at the last election was around negative gearing and whether it was exacerbating this problem of rentals or not. Like, do you feel like we need to really overhaul some of those bigger political issues to get to the bottom of homelessness?
Potentially, and I think that's like from my time, so while I was there when the first home buyer grant and that came in, you know, you saw property prices jump dramatically at that time. So that's when, and then we saw housing as a commodity and an investment and to make money. So, you know, there's consistent growth in that market. So people are not only looking to make money at the end when they sell it, but also while they have a tenant in there and renting. So that's why it's making it hard, because if you're on a lower end income or Centrelink, like basically those haven't kept pace with society, to be honest. Job seeker has basically remained stagnant for I don't know how long. They're small CPI increases or whatever each year, but it just hasn't kept pace with what the actual reality of trying to rent a home is. So, you know, when you're say you get New Start and rent assistance, and your income's roughly, say, just over 600 a fortnight, and you're paying 220, 230, you know, there's 460 gone before you've bought food, before you've paid any bills, before you've done anything. If you're trying to run a car or
send
anything else,
send the kids and
whatever else, you know,
all
or
that stuff,
so you know that parenting payments, they just haven't kept pace with what society is doing. So that needs an overhaul, I would say. People, and it's amazing with COVID supplements and with the increases there, people, it's amazing. You know, you give people enough to live on and they don't walk in our doors. It's pretty simple. Look, there are people that have been coming in though because they've been the ones that have been close to the line already and they've been working and, wages gone for whatever reason, businesses shut down or couldn't operate during that time, and that's why we've been busy.
Or they've been casual employees who didn't get job seeker.
So if we were looking at a perfect world and we were able to house everybody that needed a home, it would effectively put you out of business. I'm sure you'd do a little happy dance, that'd be fine. But what would that mean for society?
I think that, you know, the overall cost, when you start looking at costs on things such as mental health system, family violence and the other supports, drug and alcohol and all those other areas, and what it actually costs long term for people that are in the system. You know, if you spend $1 million here by providing accommodation, you're probably saving 4 or 5 at the end of the day from, you know, over the course of 10 years. Like if we were able to, get in early and prevent and support people out of the system, then, you know, things don't develop as much, because the amount of anxiety and stress and things that people are under because they're homeless it's just exacerbated. And especially once you start, you know, doing that for a period of time, you know, we're talking years, you know. And it was always the thing that people always thought that people had a mental health issue, say, and then that's why they ended up becoming homeless. But it's been proven, you know, it's the other way around. The longer you're homeless, people develop mental health issues because of the stress and the pressure, and your physical health, not only your mental health, goes backwards. And, you know, and the things that happen with, you know, after a while, you maybe, you know, you're staying with, you and your kids are staying with your sister and their kids and that family, and then the kids fight, and then you and your sister fight. Next thing, you've broken a relationship, a support you've always had. So you become more and more isolated as time goes on. So.
Yeah, it's complex and all interconnected, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Look, we could probably talk for... Oh, we've got a question in the front here, and I'm going to run up here with my microphone.
Oh, I may have forgotten some of the questions, but thinking about the future of homes in Ballarat, how much planning has gone into the sort of family structure? Because it seems to me that there may be a lot more need for single bedroom places than we have anticipated in the past.
Definitely, and predominantly in development now, and that's one of the things we've raised consistently, is there, when, say, properties now are having maybe, they're chopping off the backyard, they're putting in 2 or 3 bedroom properties in the back, or they're building 2 or 3 bedroom property houses, in new estates, but we're not catering to that 1 bedroom market. There isn't that there. So people just cannot afford a 2-bed unit on JobKeeper.
There used to be bed sits, didn't there? You used to be able to get those sorts of apartments, and certainly in the
Yes, but even just a small single bedroom unit.
Yeah.
With a small lounge kitchen and a bedroom.
Yeah.
Is, and quite realistically, it's, any one of us that's single probably doesn't really need much more than that. It's just we're used to it.
Oh, another question. Here we go.
No, I don't need. I don't need. Oh, I see. You've thrown around a few figures here that I'm trying to track. You talk about 80 million for Ballarat public housing. And how is that going to be used?
So it's not just going to be public housing, as in managed by DWHS. It'll be managed, hopefully, I'm away from the microphone again, but in the development, we're not sure exactly what it's going to look like on the ground yet. We still haven't been told it will be, 30 3-bedroom houses, or 10 1-bed, or what. We don't know what it's going to look like yet.
Costs, that's about 300 homes, small homes.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
But the other thing you talked about was 12,000 new homes. So is that the target?
Yeah, and that's also that other component there is redevelopment as well. So they're also looking at, the department are looking at redeveloping existing properties and upgrading them, but also developing components of, say if they've got one property on a massive, 1,200 square block, what else they can do there as well. Yeah.
Okay. And how is this housing going to be built? Is it going to be managed by your organisation, Uniting? Is it going to be private sector? What's the procurement process?
Still hasn't hit the ground yet. It's been announced that that's what's coming in, so it's being built. Things will be starting off as of February next year when Homes Victoria starts, and I guess they're restructuring the department now to start working on how they're going to deliver it. So, yeah.
It'd be great if we could have some politicians to this next one, and we can ask them the questions, because obviously they're the ones who hold the purse strings.
I've got 2 questions. What's the process of becoming a volunteer to help? And secondly, Soup Bus, relationship with Soup Bus in Ballarat, how does that work?
Firstly, on the Soup Bus, they are a totally separate organisation to us. They operate alongside us. They offer a meal of an evening, we don't. We offer a hot meal at lunchtime, and we offer a takeaway pack which people can use as their evening meal. Soup Bus offers a hot meal at night. To be perfectly honest, in the 12 months that I've been involved with Breezeway, I have not had time to even visit the Soup Bus to see how they operate. So I'm speaking anecdotally and from information that I've acquired through the Food Access Network and so forth. But no, they're not. Are they a registered charity? I'm not even sure that they are. Yeah, yeah. I'm not exactly sure how they operate.
It's laid aside and it's non-denominational. It's not associated with churches or that as well. So I think that's also another don't want to be tied to that, then they don't have to be. And it's providing another, like I guess, something that we've never had. Like our services have been all through the day, whereas at night time people are still out and about, somewhere to be, and that connection as well. And hot meal at night time, so that's been able to fill that. So it's great. It's community support. So,
typical Ballarat.
Yeah.
And becoming a volunteer?
And becoming a volunteer. Come and visit me. Knock on the door at 105 Dana Street and ask for me. Yes, certainly.
I run the little shop down at the BMI on the Sturt Street entrance, and I had a visit from one of your cooks recently who was a customer, and she told a really enlightening story about the tradies who worked on the railway renovations, and these men had come up from Melbourne, I think, doing their work, and they donated roast dinners to
No, they're not working on the railway. There are three or four, I've never actually worked out exactly how many, but a number of gentlemen who are working on the power lines. On one of the projects with power lines.
Yes.
I don't know which company they work for. They happened to notice us. They saw people on the street at lunchtime. They came down, they had a bit of a look around, and the next thing I knew, I had a phone call. And they asked if they could please donate some money each week for us to buy food.
Well, I thought it was just a wonderful...
Yep, it's a gorgeous story.
Yes.
So when I spoke to them, they were wanting to open an account with Woolies for us so we could just order some groceries. And it was during the time when you couldn't get home delivery through Woolworths, it just wasn't happening. So I spoke to them and I put them onto our local butcher, and for the last 6 or 8 months they've been dropping $100 into the butcher to pay for a roast for Sunday.
It was fabulous, and for the cook it was really easy work.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we just build up our little stash of money up there and order the meat in that we require, and for once we get what we want.
Coming out of the woodwork. It's amazing that people do want to help. They do.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with this was these fellows are all from out of town. They've come in as workers on a project, and as they've come and gone from the house, they've just continued. So whoever comes in puts in his little bit, and
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Really encouraging.
Okay. Warwick's just reminded me, I probably should acknowledge a lot of the support that we've had locally over the last 12 months, and that reminded Warwick and me, Warwick more so. We've been very fortunate. We picked up a grant from the Ballarat Foundation this year. They gave us $10,000, which is amazing. It's helped us significantly. One of the things that we've found that has impacted us a lot with COVID is that we have to provide all the meals takeaway, which means we have to provide takeaway containers. Where we would normally wash a plate and put it back on the counter for tomorrow, we're having to buy takeaway containers. The actual cost of that is over $7,000 this year. Fortunately, some of those have been donated, but had we had to buy them all, well over $7,000 just to provide the containers that we put the food in. We've been very fortunate in our new Breezeway. We have a brand new commercial kitchen, we have a brand new meals area, and we have a small cafe area which in the future will become a social enterprise exercise. Albert Street, where the old furniture shop used to be. Okay, so that has been completely redeveloped, and also the top end of that building has been redeveloped as emergency relief. That was funded through Pick My Project under the auspices of Alfred and Rotary Club. They nominated us. The Oliver Foundation was involved with that as well, and Jill Oliver personally, and that has just been finished. That's been 3 years coming. The funding was originally received about 3 years ago. And we're opening that at the end of January, we hope, or very soon after.
I don't know, yeah. If you ever got to see what we operate out of now, that kitchen is probably...
a third of the dance floor.
Yeah, yeah. So now to be able to have those opportunities to have a big commercial kitchen and be able to do that, it's going to be amazing. They'll be able to work even bigger magic in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, without those supporters, we would be still operating out of that, in another 10 years, because as we said, it's unfunded and not supported.
And the demand is increasing.
And the demand's
Absolutely.
increasing.
Yeah.
And we've got
Absolutely.
with that, we've got bigger ideas. It's about Jen was saying before, that's not about people. People have places to cook, but they literally don't know what to do or how to do it. No one's ever shown them or walked them through. So maybe in time when we can, we'll be able to develop some programs to maybe run a small cooking class for half a dozen people at a time. Bring them through, say, okay, we're going to go tonight, we're making spag bowl, we go into the supermarket, we'll buy it, this is how much we need, what we do, this is how you prep it, cook it, make it, and we're empowering people and giving them skills to move on.
Building self-sufficiency.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
But not only those couple of larger supporters, Ballarat Gold Mines has just given us some money. Fantastic. They are involved in the community. They see what we do and value it. So
and it's not just those big ones. It's mum and dads
the little ones,
and people. We have consistent people that just come in. Once a fortnight or every month, $20, whatever. It's amazing. And they've been doing it for years, and that's what enables us to keep operating.
They're the ones that we can rely on every year. These other larger ones, much and all as we love them.
Yeah, well, you don't know. You can't bank.
You can't bank them.
Yeah.
Yep. But Lions clubs, Rotary clubs, people.
Just general community
Just
members.
general community.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's nothing to see somebody walk in the door with a bag full of silver beet out of their garden.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, and there you go. There's, or whatever it may be, and Jen will have 10 kilos of carrots
for the next 3
and it's
days.
Like, what am I going to do with
10?
Oh well, plus.
60 at a time from Food Bank. But and then zucchini season starts. You don't even need an explanation on that.
Well, actually, we should probably share some zucchini recipes, because at the end of zucchini season, you just think, I can't look at another zucchini. Yeah. Look, we could probably talk all night, and it's fascinating to hear from you. I'm sure we're going to try and get you in again, or we'll try and do something more with you. I mean, I said before we started that I was in awe of what you do, but I'm doubly in awe after hearing all of the details. So congratulations. Thank you so much for being here with us at the BMI, and Merry Christmas to you and to everyone you serve.
And to all of you, and I'd just like to acknowledge our volunteers. Without them, Breezeway doesn't exist.
Yeah, true.
Thank you, Warwick Davison and Jen Wright.
Thank you.